Hello everyone, my name is Stephen Bell, aka Stakuyi, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Our History Untold Dev Diaries.
And I'm GamerZakh. Today's episode will be a conversation around something both of us, like all of you watching at home, are incredibly passionate about: grand strategy.
And so now, before we get into it, make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated with the latest news on Our History Untold, as there is going to be quite a few videos that are dropping on this channel this month.
And remember, we're just days away from launch. Our History Untold comes out September 24th, so be sure to mark your calendars, get your pre-orders in, and/or make sure your PC Game Pass account is ready to rock.
Exactly, and just like Zach mentioned, today we're going to be looking at the grand strategy genre as a whole. We're going to be discussing why it has endured through all the years, what it means to us personally, and what makes it so damn enjoyable. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. So, alright then, first question, how does 4X fit into the grand strategy genre? I mean, after all, we see 4X games that are brought up a lot in these discussions, so what's the relationship between 4X and grand strategy?
Oh, you're getting me into genres, which is a bit of a thing for me. So, when it comes to genres, I've found the more accurate the definition, the less useful it gets. So there's all sorts of disagreements, right? When we say 4X, there's a million people with a million different ideas of what 4X is, even though it does have the literal definition of the 4Xs. For example, one time I called Heroes of Might and Magic a 4X game, and some people got very upset, and understandably so, but because they said it didn't include diplomacy, which is part of what traditional 4Xs are, even though it's not in one of the X's.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hardline encoded within it, but it's one of those things that you expect, because if you're going to have a genre that is going to have these features, if it doesn't have diplomacy, it feels like it is lacking, like it is missing something, absolutely.
Yeah, and then whether grand strategies are 4Xs, are they a subcategory? That's going to be a whole thing. But let's just, for now, assume, let's set the premise that grand strategies and 4Xs are closely related.
Yes, they are intertwined inevitably. I don't think that we could have a 4X, microeconomic simulator? Like, what would we do? A 4X shopping? Like design a Walmart. There you go. I don't think that's going to work very well.
Game.
Yeah, do a Sims Tycoon or something like that. But 4X. Yes, you get to conquer the individual little squares on the map and create something. I don't even know how that would work.
No, someone will try it someday, and it will work or it won't. But generally, 4X games and grand strategies, it's a bit more zoomed out. You know, an RTS game is a battle. Tactics games are even more close up, whereas 4X and grand strategies are varying levels of zoomed out. Typically, they take place across a world, or at least a very large map, and you have multiple battles ongoing. So that's generally what we're talking about.
And I think the grand part of that is what is so important, because there's a difference between a strategy game and a grand strategy game. Because when you're talking about something that is grand strategy, I mean, you're talking about levels of planning that don't just start from turn 50 or 60. It's from the very beginning. And yes, you can have things that change your plan a little bit along the way, but you're talking about a master build that you were trying to construct to create something, your own vision of what it is that you want to do, that you, in many cases, have to plan from the very beginning, or else you can get lost by those who do actually plan.
Now that we've established what we're talking about, we can get into some of the more specifics. So, for example, the turn system. You know, 4Xs have varying turn systems for single player and multiplayer.
They do.
And we can talk about how the turn system impacts the overall feel of grand strategy games.
Honestly, it's one of those things that if we're talking about terms, you have, of course, the ones that are simultaneous, like the dynamic kind of turn systems. You have the turn systems that are, I don't even know what the term would be, but it's like the roulette system, where it simply works as one person finishes, then it goes to the next. And then you have hybrid systems that are just in between each of that somehow, where it's the players get to go, but then the AI are things, if you're playing in a big multiplayer game, that they go after the fact for the players. It really depends upon the system that you're using, but it can change every single aspect. Because is it a game of chess, or is it more like a real-time system where you are trying to predict and block someone's move in real time?
Yeah, and no matter what system you pick, people are going to complain.
Always.
It doesn't matter which one you go for. There's pros and cons. I don't think there's been an absolutely perfect turn system that works for everyone. So there's flavors, there's styles, and there's preferences.
Exactly. And a lot of people really forget that these games have existed for a long time. So there have been a lot of different systems in the way that they're implemented. Like, just for you, as an example, what are some of the early strategy games that got you into the genre?
The first 4X I probably played was probably Civ 2 Multiplayer Gold Edition. So a little bit late, not Civ 2. Multiplayer Gold Edition was the one I got. So it was like 96. Pretty good one to start with. But I think going further back is sort of even more interesting because I sort of was looking at the origins of the genre. And it, of course, brought me to like the, board games, 80s and 70s. There's the board games, which have Risk, and then the Civilization board game. But I found this really interesting initial development of a video game, which was based on the board game, but it was very different. And it's called Incunabula, which is a terrible name for a video game, but it was like 1984, 1985. And the manual is lost to time. I couldn't find a copy, so it's almost impossible to figure out.
Oh my God.
It's such an interesting view into how the genre came up. But then I didn't play that back in the day. It was a bit before my time. But so I started with Civ 2, and I played like pretty much a whole bunch of 4Xs since then.
Nah, for me, it was a lot of the same, except it wasn't Civ 2. It was, it was at the time that Civ 4 had just came out. And I still remember as a kid, because I was always a person that I loved trailers. I loved like the cinematography that would just wrap everything up. And I just remember watching as a kid and seeing the intro for Civ 4. And it blew my mind away watching all the wonders and everything being built and this idea of civilization itself being built up. But I have a weird story. This is a weird one. My first ever strategy game that I ever had, the thing that made me love it, was a little game called Nemesis of the Roman Empire. Are you familiar with it?
No, I've not heard of that one.
Okay. It is a PC game that I got in like 2003 by tricking my grandparents.
As we do, yes.
So context for the story in here, book fairs, like the Scholastic book fairs and different kind of things where they sell books and stuff sometimes. And when I was a kid, I went to one of these things. They had a section at the very front with all the books. And I went with my grandparents, and I saw this game with a picture of Hannibal Barca on it. And I thought that looked amazing. And I begged for it, and my grandmother went and got it for me. The next week, my grandmother went and asked me, "Hey, so Steven, how are you enjoying that documentary we got you?" And as it turns out,
documentary.
The whole reason that I got my first ever strategy game, the thing that started me on this path, is because my grandmother was tricked into thinking that a game was actually a documentary.
Games back then, and up until today, but like interestingly back then, I remember speaking to some developers from the 90s and early 2000s who made like historically based strategy games. I'm a big Caesar 3 guy, so like that's ancient Rome and all of that. And at the time, like those developers weren't really looking to make educational games, because educational games back then were educational games. I don't know if you remember them.
Hard line into it, yes.
They were horrible. But then some developers just enjoyed history. So they were like, okay, well, we're just going to make a game about what we enjoy. And it coincidentally was sort of educational. Like I remember playing Age of Empires 1. And like at the start of every mission, there's like a tab, like there's your objectives and the description of the mission. Then there's a tab on the history. And it's like, oh, yes, the Assyrians at this time were going through this war. And it's like, oh, okay. I was reading it without really understanding that I was reading history. I just thought it was a story. And
for me, that was Civilization and Total War. I get that.
Yeah, it sort of infuses... It does help build storytelling in your mind as well, because it gives context to what's going on. Quite often, especially in 90s and earlier games, you load it up and there's not really any context or story. You're just there and you're like, what's going on? And if you want to understand what's going on, you have to read the manual if you happen to have it. If you got the game from a bargain bin, you might not have the manual, so you have no idea what's going on. So when these historical games, whether they're 4Xs or RTSs or whatever, they put the history in there. Even though it's not quite a story, it set the stage in your mind. And then when you're playing the game, it's like, oh, yes, I'm I'm defeating the invaders, and I am the hero. And it's,
Yes, I am the grand leader who saved our destiny. Yes.
Yeah, but it's just following what actually happened based on what we understand from history. But it sort of put you in there. Like, I am now the leader of this civilization, and I'm the leader of these people, defeating the leader of the other people. And back then, you didn't quite know exactly what was the specifics, but it was like, good guy, bad guy, yeah.
It's us and it's them, and I like us. We're gonna do this, yes.
It's a way where strategy games, which are often not narrative, sort of let us build our own narrative, and we can see in 4Xs a lot of that as well, especially the grand strategy 4Xs that go on for many, many hours. You always have that sort of game that stuck with you. Like, I remember I massed 100 tanks and I just obliterated those cavemen. It's like...
Especially when you're actually role-playing and not just going for a meta. It allows you to do so much more of that yourself.
Okay, so we've been through our personal experiences. I mean, what do you think, if someone's getting into grand strategy today, right? What would you say they would need to get into it? Do they need to know history? Do they need to know the strategy? How does someone today get into a strategy game?
I mean, you really don't, because, like we talked about in the beginning, there's games of this for literally anyone. Oh, do you want a sci-fi version of something? Go for it. Do you want a fantasy version? Go for it. Do you want a history version? Go for it. There's any number of things that it's pretty much about finding, what is your thing that you like? What do you find to be enjoyable? What is your niche that you're attracted to? And there's going to be something for it. But the most important thing is that even if you don't know the history itself, you can we talked about this before, you can create whatever story you want. And that's what's awesome. Do I firmly expect that I'm going to be able to take the Zulus into the space age in history? Probably not. Can I do it now, though? Yes. Yes, I can. And I'm going to do that, and I'm going to find it hilarious and awesome. It's just one of those things where you don't necessarily have to have this knowledge, but you really can just dive into and enjoy something, because it's not about what you're allowed to do. It's what you can do, because it's everything. You could literally do just about anything.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, thinking back to how, I used to buy video games anyway, you wouldn't know what you're buying in the 90s, really. Right? There's no YouTube videos to check out, and you're not getting the magazines to read all the reviews. You just sort of look at the cover and see if you vibe. And you didn't really vibe back then. But I think that a lot of people have forgotten that that's how we used to buy games, and that's how we used to get into games, where we just looked at a cover and it's like, oh, there's a skeleton on the back. I'm into skeletons. I want to get this game. It's a skeleton game. And you don't really know exactly what to do.
You discover it as you go.
Yeah. It's like, is it a strategy game? Is it an RPG? Is it an MMO? Who knows? It's got skeletons in it.
I think that's one of those things when talking about games, especially a lot of modern games, but it doesn't just apply to games. It applies to games, it applies to movies, it applies to oftentimes books for some people. It really just depends. But the amount of spoilers on things that exist is insane, and our access to all of this is so infinite that if you are going and playing a game or watching a movie that is story driven, which, I mean, yeah, of course a movie is going to be story driven, but if you're playing a game that is story driven, it feels like half the story is already spoiled for you from the very beginning, and then that can end up hurting your desire to get it. For some people it confirms it, for others it hurts. And for me, it was always something that hurt, because I don't like seeing 90% of the movie in the trailer. I don't like seeing the entirety of the story for what's going to happen. I remember that wonder of the late 90s going into the early 2000s of getting the big blocky case where it had the computer games that had 5 discs in it, and you had to look at the art on the back and go, man, is this something I want to do? This looks cool. And then discovering the game as it goes on.
I do find when I somehow manage to shut off all the external media on a certain game and I get into it, I'm like, oh, wow, I'm really enjoying this. And then I go online at some point and see what people are saying about it, and everyone's like, this sucks. And it's like, I thought it was kind of cool. And that external narrative, I think, does get in the way of getting into some games sometimes, because Nowadays, people nitpick everything into tiny, tiny pieces. And it's like, this is good, this is bad. But like, really, I think we should go back to vibes. It's just,
Yep.
yeah, do you vibe with this? Yeah, okay, cool. You know, if you don't vibe with it, okay, cool. You don't have to like nitpick every single detail before you even touch the thing.
I agree. And perhaps maybe it's because of the openness, like what we talked about before, the grand strategy has even lasted as long as it has. I mean, why do you think that it's so popular? Like, is it because it's just, there's so much in depth? Is it the challenge of it? Is there something else?
I mean, it's actually kind of a conundrum because I look at like stats all the time, right? I'm into looking at stats and numbers and who's playing what's the most popular games. And, you know, there's always this people say, oh, people like strategy games are like a niche genre, or oh, only the hardcore nerds are going to be playing the 4X grand strategies. But if you look at the numbers, like if we're counting 4Xs and grand strategies as one thing, in like the top 100 most played Steam games right now, there's like 8 to 10 4X grand strategies in the top 100 most played games. So that's like 10% of the most played games right now are 4X grand strategies. And like 10% is a lot for like for a single genre, right? You know, there's not 10% of RTS in there. That one's a bit more of a lull. You know, Age of Empires 4 is there, but that's kind of dominating. But like for 4X and grand strategy, there's a lot. You know, many, many games. You know, the World War games, the historical games, the fantasy games. There's a lot of good options out there. And it's like at odds with what people keep saying. Like grand strategies are hard to get into. Grand strategies are complicated and confusing and niche. But then you look at the numbers, actually, they're like really popular. It's sort of like a mix of, I think once you get into it, you get into it. You know, it's like when I was picking up a grand strategy one time, and I just did not understand why anything was happening. And I was just playing and playing and playing, and things were going wrong, and I was losing, and I just had no idea. And about 10 hours in, something clicked, and I was like, oh, that's how the game works. And then once I got it, then I just kept playing, and it's like, oh yeah, now I'm winning. Now I'm conquering the world. You know, it did take like 10 hours for me to get the game, but then once I got it, it's like, oh, I just want to keep going because now absolutely. I understand. I want to keep going. I want to do it again. I want to do it better. So I think, you know, even though it might be a little tricky to get into 4Xs and grand strategies, once you get into it, it's like very addictive.
Oh, it is. It is something that with time, it's like you don't even realize when it's happening to you, and it just does. It's prime example for me, even as a kid, where I didn't know what was going on. I would just hold my mouse over the descriptions they would have of units, of buildings, of all these varying things. I remember the Total War series, where first one I ever played, Medieval 2 Total War, and then I went back and I got Rome after this. And I just remember right-clicking on a building and just seeing, and it just gives the description of what it was. And I thought that was so cool. The varying things, that you can have a moment that just kind of clicks with you. You get this moment of an epic battle that happens where something just works out and you're like, oh my God, I just did that. That's amazing. Or you just managed to jump into a next era. Or my personal favorite, assassination animations when they had this. Like when I discovered, oh my God, you can build assassins in this game and take out leaders, and it gave a video of your assassin actually doing this. That's amazing. I love this. It's just really something that there's always some kind of aspect that just sucks us in. I fully agree with that.
Yeah, and it always feels like there's something else to discover. Or rather, there's still something you don't understand. And it's like, I'll understand that someday. Someday I'll read the wiki and I'll figure that mechanic out. Not today, someday.
That was me with Europa Universalis 4. I kid you not, I read the wiki of that for fun. And just every day I would read just like an hour or two of it, of some different aspect. Trade, diplomacy, religion, any number of different things. And there would be this moment after playing it for 6-7 years where I'd be like, oh shoot, wait, that's how that works? Oh my God. And it would just change how I'd be able to do something for the future.
Okay, so we've been going for a while. So to wrap this up, you know, I think what we can do is we can say what this genre means to each of us individually. Why do we still love these games so much? And why do we still get new ones and keep playing the old ones after all of these years? So how about for you?
I'll be honest, for me, grand strategy has always been almost kind of like a lifeline. Like, for the longest time, I was a person that I never enjoyed a lot of the stuff with multiplayer when it came to shooters. With things like, I hated run and gun. I liked the strategy of it, which is why even when you talk about shooters, I preferred Battlefield over Call of Duty, because I much preferred the strategy of larger number of units working together versus guy running around with a pistol and a knife. I hated that as a kid. But seeing that play out on a much larger scale and just watching the wonder of it, like, my favorite thing that I love to do, I still remember, is I loved constructing all the wonders in Civilization. I loved seeing that build from the ground up. I loved seeing this epic army that I put together work in like a kind of coalition with each other and just watching that play out across the battlefield. I loved seeing a plan that I had started from the beginning play out and actually work as intended. It's one of those things that it's this level of satisfaction of, I've been working towards this for a long time. Kind of like when you're working out, you know? You don't feel great after the first workout that you did. It's exhausting. But after 10, 20, 30, 40 sessions, and how much stronger and better you feel after it, it was this invigorating feeling that is what I could compare it to.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I've been trying to work out recently, and like, those first few weeks, then you settle into it. It's that first 10 hours kind of thing. Yeah,
exactly.
For me, I think nostalgia always plays a big part for me because it's a genre I played growing up. I'm always reminiscing. Even when I play the new ones, I'm like, yes, I remember my memories, and then I'm bringing it to the present, and like it just creates that link. But also, me having a programming background, I like systems and like, the cogs and the gears all working together and the little intricate things, and 4Xs and grand strategies just have a lot of those. And even if you don't know how each piece is working and what each piece is doing, you do like, I do like the, I'm going to tweak this thing and then that thing's running faster. And then, I'm going to tweak this thing and now this thing's stronger, and the synergies you can build, it just leaves a lot of options open. And I like tinkering with systems. And 4Xs and grand strategies is just a lot of systems on systems. So there's a lot of room to explore. Yeah, it's a lot of like mental exploration for me. And, I do like going at my own pace as well. Like, I'm not great at first-person shooters either because my reaction times. But like if it's turn-based, or I can pause the game, then it's like, okay. Let me figure out this system. I'm just going to work on this tiny bit for now and then ignore the rest. And I'll work on that bit. And then I realize, these 2 bits, they connect. And that's the sparks in my brain, which is like, yes. And like, grand strategy and 4X are just filled with those.
Okay, and with that, I think honestly we have been talking for quite a while, maybe a little bit too much at this point, and there's so much more that we could say. So I think that is it for today's conversation. Thank you all, everyone, for watching.
Let us know some of your all-time favorite strategy games. If you've got any thoughts or questions, drop them in the comments down below.
And of course, be sure to subscribe for future Dev Diaries. Go ahead and follow us on social platforms of your choice, and do not forget to pre-order our History Untold before it drops on September 24th, which is coming right up.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.